Welcome to the Thrifty Business Podcast, where we talk with thrift retailers from across the country about the challenges of running their business and how they succeed. I'm your host, Kyle Payton. Today we have TJ Bandiera with Wake County, and we're happy to have him here. TJ, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you're in charge of the ReStores. So really just kind of give us, the listeners here, a rundown. What is Wake County all about? What are the ReStores? For a lot of people don't know. So just kind of educate us on really Habitat in general, how ReStores fall into that, and how it kind of fits into the thrift world.
Got it. So that's a lot of questions, but basically, ReStores affiliates. We have Habitat for Humanity International, which is kind of like the parent organization. Inside of that, we have affiliates. There's probably about 900 of them around the country, and there's about 50 around the world. And in essence, I always like to describe it like a franchise. It's county based. So it's not city or state, but it's based on the county that you live in. So here in the Raleigh-Durham area, we actually have 3 affiliates. The Wake County affiliate, which is basically Raleigh. We have a Durham County affiliate, which serves Durham County, and then Orange County, which is like Chapel Hill area. The 3 cities together are called, down here we call it the Triangle. So, so we have the 3 affiliates, and over the years, each affiliate has their own ReStores that they can set up. So there's in Habitat, obviously the whole mission is to build houses for people and provide affordable housing for people. The ReStore is a fundraiser. That is all that the ReStore is. And so over the years, when they first started Habitat, they were trying to figure out ways to raise more funds to build more houses. And the ReStore concept got born because people were donating a lot of items. And we were like, if you open a store and start selling these items, we can make more money to build more houses. Our affiliate in Wake County was opened in, I think 1995 is when it was founded. And for a long time, it had one ReStore based in the city of Raleigh. Wake County is a very large county with a lot of different cities. And probably starting in, I think it was 2013, Wake County opened a second ReStore in a town called Cary. And then over the next number of years, it's almost like every year another store was opening. And when I started with the organization in 2016 range, 2017, we had 6 ReStores just based in Wake County. And so then Durham County, Durham and Orange were kind of like, they kind of like worked together, and they had one ReStore in the city of Durham. And so our whole area had 7 stores. The 3 affiliates got together and said, we want to be more efficient in how we manage our stores. So an agreement was reached that Wake County would take over management of the store in Durham. And so we became 7 stores. And at the same time, there's a county next to Wake called Johnson County. And what Wake County, they didn't really have any house building. There wasn't any ReStores. There wasn't any organization. So Wake simultaneously took over Johnston County and became a 2-county affiliate. So we're now the Habitat of Wake and Johnson counties. And we opened a store in a city in Johnson County called Clayton. And then, so we had a ton of stores on this one side of town, but only this one store in Durham. So we opened 2 more stores more on the Durham side. And then we actually opened 1 store in Orange County and Hillsborough. So now totally we have 10 stores that we manage. It's managed through one central group. We have a VP of ReStores, Emily George. She's my boss. We have one director, Jason Nessler. And then my title is the ReStore Operations Manager. And it's pretty much encompasses almost everything if you can operationally minded.
Yeah, more like a jack of all trades. Let's just call it what it is.
It's everything from building security all the way through to Thrift Card and to managing our computer systems and how we do pricing in our stores, sales analysis, all that kind of fun stuff. So for the purposes of this podcast, like in terms of like a big portion of my job then is to really look at our business model. And then, obviously our goal is to keep increasing sales, keep, figuring out new ways to have either cost savings on this side, on the spending side, or how are we going to raise more net sales inside of our stores. So we have taken for those in the audience that don't really understand how the ReStore works, we're basically everything that we sell is basically donations. So the general public will donate to us household goods, furniture, tools and hardware. There's a lot. It's almost sometimes easier to describe the list of things we don't sell, and there's
that you guys don't take. Now, one thing I think listeners are going to want to know is, do you guys also buy product? Because I know Habitat being a nonprofit, I know Wake County's. You guys do things a little differently. Is there a percentage of product that you do buy? Are there certain categories that you buy? And really, what's the reasoning for that?
So the answer is yes. We do purchase some items. The items that we purchase from that perspective, we try to buy items that don't generally get donated to us. For example, we sell waterproof laminate flooring. Typically, people don't donate. If they donate one, they'll donate like a box. Well, a box is going to have, 20, 30 square feet in it. That's not enough to do a project in your house. So we want to be able to have our customers have the option to buy, 2, 3, I've had customers buy, 2,000 or 3,000 square feet of flooring all at once. We also sell brand new area rugs, because a lot of the rugs that come in have, because all of our items are used, and you get the pet stains, I'll call it like that, different smells or whatever. So brand new area rugs are actually a decent seller for us. And then now, every Habitat affiliate and ReStore has different philosophies. We're more of a conservative affiliate. There are some tax laws, and it's kind of very technical, but we can't have too much of our net sales come from purchased product, because we are a 501c3 and we're not paying taxes on the money that we're making. So we have to be careful that we're not going over that limit and potentially getting ourselves.
There's like a threshold that you guys have to stay within, right? Gotcha. I wanted to back up just a second, because I didn't know this either. So if I were to ask you, hey TJ, so of a ReStore's business and revenues, obviously that goes towards the affiliate, but of what the affiliate, collects in terms of revenue, what would you say is the proportion of that comes through ReStores? Like how important are ReStores to the overall mission, to the overall affiliate?
That's a great question. When I was talking earlier about the ReStore being a fundraiser, 100% of the profits that come out of our stores is given back to the affiliate to build houses. So this is a true nonprofit type of, retail business. So this year, when we have 10 stores, and that's a lot. We're the biggest ReStore chain in the United States in terms of number of stores. But we service, our money is given to all 3 counties to help build houses. So we just more look at it as total number of houses. This year we were budgeted to give money back to build 14 houses. In our area in Raleigh and Durham, it costs us $170,000 to build a house now. Wow. 5-6 years ago, it was 90,000. So it just in 5 years has really gone way up. So this year, our net revenue that we're going to give back to the 3 affiliates would do 14 houses, but we're having such a good sales year that our reprojections that we just did here at the beginning of January says that we're going to do at least 18. We're going to fund at least 18 houses. And one of those houses is going to be funded strictly from roundup money that happens at the register. So during a register transaction, your total comes to $10.52. We ask the customer, would you like to round up to $11 and donate the change to us? And given with our 10 stores, we're on track to raise about $200,000 this year just from asking for some extra donations at the register.
That's absolutely amazing. I am so glad you quantified that, because that was always something, being a feature of Thrift Cart, you know, the roundup donation. I was always wondering, like, how much of that did you guys actually get in a year? And to know that the roundup donation is actually paying for someone's house, I mean, that's awesome. That's remarkable.
And just, you know, as a side note for us, because we take our employees and staff, I mean, this is the best group of people I have ever worked with in my entire career. But they're so passionate about it. And our CEO, we had a meeting this week with all the store managers and the assistant managers, and the CEO came in, and this one house that we're funding, we're actually we're going to brand it the Restore House. The staff from the stores are going to go help build the house. And then when the family moves in, we're going to, we dedicate every house, and we're going to go and be able to dedicate it. And that really helps us to connect to the mission, because when you're in the store, you're selling items, and you don't sometimes you can forget that, hey, the reason why I'm doing this is we're trying to raise money to build houses. So we really try to bring that focus back to our employees, that's our reason for existence.
So that's amazing. And I love the tie-in with the Restore and how that directly goes back to the county, back to people, back to the overall Habitat mission. I wanted to go back to something you said. You mentioned that the Restores in the Triangle area were having a great year. I know for a lot of other businesses, it's been pretty trying. It's been a difficult, past couple months, past year. What is Wake doing differently that has helped you guys kind of weather the storm? There's obviously inflation, there's a downturn in the economy. What have you guys seen, and what are you guys doing differently to help kind of offset that?
So when I first started in this business, in general, I visit ReStores when I travel. I think the mentality is you get these items in, you price them, you probably have a range of how you price stuff, but it's basically like get the amount of money you can get for it and move on. Because in our area, the general public is very, very generous. They donate a lot of items to us. We took a different approach. We had not to be too complicated, but we had 10 stores, and over the years, like, different stores were doing things different. We didn't have any standardization. Different stores are pricing different ways. We had 4 different register interfaces through Thrift Cart that we were using because different stores wanted things different way. And we took a step back and said, okay, like, what is important to how we're going to make our sales? Because not everything that comes in, while we can sell it, there are certain things that have more value or can really contribute to the net sales at the end of the day. So we came up with 6 categories that we call our revenue drivers. And the biggest category of item that we sell in our stores is furniture. That, in a lot of our stores, it's, could be 40 to 50% of the total sales just come from furniture. And so this took us a couple of years to do. So the first step that we did was we said we have to standardize how everybody is pricing. And Thrift Cart provides us to be able to create a barcode, so like a pricing barcodes for all of our items. So when it goes to the register, it can be scanned. So inside of that, originally, like, we would have categories like furniture, and then everything that went into that one category. It just fell in that category. So we went back and actually decided to do a lot of subcategories. So we have, in furniture alone, I have 39 different types of items. So coffee tables, recline. I mean, I separate sofas versus love seats versus an upholstered chair versus a recliner, dining room tables with chairs, without chairs, etc. And so all we had the stores do is just price in these categories. And then the next phase of that was also to look at our register interface and get everybody pricing the same way and then selling the same way. Because before that, we had really bad sales data, and it was literally all over the place, and you couldn't make sense of it. So once we got everybody on the same process and pricing and selling the same way, then we could go back after 3 to 6 months and actually start to look at data that actually made sense to us. And so we realized that, when you're going to get 1 million wine glasses and plates and dishes and doorknobs and whatever. And we're telling stores, like, that stuff's important. It matters, but we're just going to make these items standard price. Right. So the advice I would give to people is, focused really pricing and understanding the value of the items that you have to price. But like, I've been in enough ReStores where people look at a dinner plate and should I put $1 on it or $2 or $3, and they're trying to make this decision. We're all like, every plate's $1. It's great. Let's move on. And and so we took a look at all of our different categories of furniture, and then Thrift Cart. The nice thing, we have a colored discount policy. So I'm maybe skipping a little bit, but when we price an item in our store, every 2 weeks, that item reduces in price by 20%. And it happens on the same day every month. So our customers know, like on the first day of the month, and then on the 15th day of the month, everything in the store goes down by another 20%. And so it's full price, then 20% off, 40% off, 60%
all the
off.
way down to, do you, when you get all the way down to the bottom, what do you guys do? Do you like donate it? Do you scrap it? Is it just kind of like a fire sale?
The answer is, the secondary mission statement of Habitat that people always don't realize is that part of our mission is also to reduce the amount of things that go to the landfill. So we take that very seriously. So we try to make throwing something away like the last thing that we do. So after 60% off, if something doesn't sell, most stores will do what they call a markdown. You can call it purging. Maybe you'll put the item out for free. So you might take the sofa, you had put $100 on it. It went down to $40. Maybe you'll put $20 on it or even $10. Try to get something for it. So at least it doesn't get thrown away. And then if it doesn't sell after 2 more weeks at $5 or $10 or $20, put a free sign on it. At least somebody can get some use out of it. And then if it doesn't, if it's the items, just not something that somebody wants, then at that point we would throw it away. But we really try to make that the last step. And, we have some, we never want to discourage someone from donating to us, but there are items that we can't take for, it might be too stained or the cat, clawed at it and it's all kind of shredded,
right. No one's going to buy that.
Right. So we try to, we never want to discourage people from donating because we're getting all of these items for free. It's tax deductible. We give a receipt to the customers so they can do whatever with their taxes. But we have kind of like the 80-20 rule sometimes too. Like if they come up with a carload or a U-Haul full of stuff and 80% of it's good, we'll take the 20% that maybe we can't sell because we want to encourage them to come back again. And then and we also offer free donation pickups as well. So if somebody can't get a large item to us, we will go out and pick up that item for free
and actually pick that up for them and take that burden off of them. Wow. Now it
is a good, in this business model, it is, even though there's a cost for a procurement team, we have 7 trucks with probably 20 guys on staff that are on our donation ambassadors is how we term them. That cost though it's worth it to have that cost because we're making so much money off the items that we can pick up because a lot of people don't have a good way to get
to get it there. I was going to ask you, what would you say is your ratio of your overall donations that you guys get? How much of it is picked up versus dropped off?
I would say probably 60% is dropped off and maybe 40% is picked up. It's kind of hard because a lot of the carloads that come in, it's boxes of home goods, but people do have, they have their pickup truck, a trailer, they rent a U-Haul, they're moving. It's so funny. I was a ReStore manager for a number of years. I managed 2 of our stores in this area. I actually opened one it was a brand new store. And, in talking with customers, you just get to, kind of part of the reason why I would ask questions, I'm just trying to learn and understand why people donate or what is the reasoning. In some cases, it's somebody moving to the area and they're downsizing. They'll get a lot of downsizing. I was in a 4-bedroom house. Now I'm in a 2-bedroom,
Yeah, so I got too much stuff. Like I got to get rid of some things.
And then of course, when, the kids, the parents pass away and they have the house full of stuff, they don't know what to do with it. They take whatever they want. And then there's the rest of the house. And so a lot of times, when you Google search, in our area, places to donate, we have done one of those things where we pop up at the top of the list of the Google searches.
Yeah, some search optimization. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that we can make sure that, we're the first, that somebody sees us first.
Today's episode is sponsored by Thrift Cart Software. Thrift Cart was built specifically for thrift and reuse stores. Thrift Cart helps manage all the pieces of their business. It's great for managing the donation process, tracking inventory, or taking roundup donations at checkout. ThriftCart also has integrations for communicating with customers, so you can keep them in the loop and coming back to your store. ThriftCart does all this and more. For listeners of this podcast, ThriftCart is offering 50% off your startup costs. Click the link in the description to schedule a demo and redeem this offer. And now, back to the show. So let me ask you, so with donations, so within ThriftCart, obviously ThriftCart can handle the scheduling of that. So how do you guys, do you have is someone on the dock at all of these stores all the time to handle donations? Do you guys have a kiosk? Because, within ThriftCart, you can set that up. But how do you guys handle the drop-offs there within ThriftCart?
So the drop-offs are, we do have a person every day assigned to the, we call the warehouse door, the dock door, whatever you want to term it. And they can, right there is where our pricing stations are at. So as the items come in, you're generating the donation receipt and you're, pricing, processing and then pricing right there. Now on the scheduling side, because we're so large, in a lot of smaller habitats, they kind of handle the scheduling in the store. Here, because now we have 4 counties that we're picking up donations in. And so we have 2 donation schedulers. So people can go to our website and they can schedule an online pickup. And that's usually what we try to encourage people to do. But if they want to talk to someone because they're not sure if we'll take the item or there's some other different, issues with like the driveway.
Right. They just want to, talk to someone live just to understand and make sure. Okay.
And then all that's happened. And so all of those pickups are scheduled through ThriftCart. And then there's ways inside of there to look at like heat mapping and kind of understanding like where our really, and understanding where your donations are coming from and like where they're concentrated at is actually a good way to understand where to open a ReStore. Because
I was going to ask that. Have you noticed like certain parts of your geographical area? Like, do you get certain kinds of donations from certain parts? And I always wonder, is there seasonality to donations? Have you noticed that?
It is. So I laugh every year at Christmas time because what the hot item was that people got for Christmas because they're donating the old, like for example, a couple of years
from the prior year.
The old one. Yeah. So like, for example, a couple of years ago, I was managing one of our stores and we got in like 75 kids bikes. And I said, I guess all the kids got new bikes this year for Christmas. And then a different year, like we got a ton of, TVs, like flat screen TVs, but like the older model. So, when you go to a ReStore, you always are like one cycle behind, especially technology wise of what is going on in that. So, but it is seasonal. It's funny how people will donate a lot of patio furniture in the wintertime, but it doesn't sell very well in the wintertime because
So that leads to a question. So, I mean, knowing that they're going to donate it in the winter, because obviously they're going to go to, IKEA or Home Depot or wherever and buy something new in the spring. Immediately I would make me think, well, what about inventory and space? I mean, that can sell. Do you guys have the capacity just to hold on to those things, or are those donations you turn away?
No, we don't turn them away, but we do know that we're going to have to slightly. So when I ran my stores in the wintertime, I would tell my staff during these months, usually, December through the end of February, because down in Raleigh, March, really starts to get warm again, price 20% less than what you would normally price. To kind of move. But then as soon as March, I would have a calendar reminder to myself that like on March 1st, we're going to re-raise those prices again a little bit higher. Most of our stores, we have a store that's like 8,000 square feet. Most of our stores are somewhere in the 12 to 15,000 square foot range. And you have to, and most of them don't really apply too much of the square footage to the back room. Gotcha. So pretty much it's mostly sales floor. Gotcha. And maybe a little bit office space. So yeah, once you get something in, most stores don't have the luxury, unfortunately. Now, recently we have an acquisition specialist. So, businesses there's a lot of times businesses will donate brand new stuff. They're trying to clear out their warehouse. There's a Lowe's and Home Depot and some of the furniture companies, appliance companies will sometimes donate new stuff to us. And recently we got 2 truckloads of brand new patio furniture, but it happened in the early January. And we're like, you know what? This stuff is so valuable. We want to really maximize our net, or what our sales are going to be. So we had a couple storage containers at one of the stores. We cleared them all out, threw the patio furniture in, and we're going to now pull that back out at the beginning of March and actually start to sell it, because we know we can get the more value for it at that point.
You can get that. And that through, your historical sales data.
Yes, exactly.
Just, obviously with running that many stores. So
the nice thing about how we've gotten with Thrift Cart is the first and foremost, you guys are great partners with us, and I really appreciate all the support. We have asked for specialized reporting that we're kind of using for how we want to see our business. And so, some of the normal sales reports, we've actually kind of gone in and said, like, we want to see our data this way in this kind of report, versus like having to run 10 different reports to try to get the data that you need. We just run it all in one place.
Well, let's touch on that, because the kind of the joke is here. I mean, it's Wake County that needs the new report. That's kind of the joke here. Like, oh, hey, we got to get with Michael. Like, we got to do some dev work. Let's create a new report. But I want to touch on that, because I think Wake is a great proving ground for looking at thrift and looking at retail differently. So what are some of the reporting or metrics that you guys are looking at that have really been a catalyst and a driver, for your business that has led to that success you alluded to earlier?
So first and foremost, we identified what our revenue drivers were going to be for this year. And given that furniture is our number one category, of course, we're going to spend the majority of our focus on that particular piece. When I mentioned earlier the discount policy, the thing that I like about Thrift Cart is when something sells, the system also knows what percentage discount it's sold at. So I actually use the metrics in 2 ways. So when you go in the back room and price, the system, if you click on a sofa, it'll give you pricing options, like a range, and originally there was 3 options. And once I started getting good sales data, I started running reports to see what we were pricing at. And to a fault, on every single subcategory, the employee was picking the middle button on average. So what I realized was, they weren't really looking at the item and trying to understand what the value of it was. They were literally so if I gave them 95, 125, and 175 as a price,
they're doing
the average they priced that, they were 125. I mean, and it was like that for every single category. So we spent a lot of time with training and helping people understand. And I actually expanded that. So there's now 6 options, 5 to 6 options, depending on the item, because I want to give them a better range of understanding what the item is.
Is quality built into that as well? Because when you mentioned okay, there's a love seat, right? So there's these options of pricing, but is there an implied quality level associated with the pricing?
Yeah, it's a learned skill. The way I teach pricing, the way I have taught pricing over the years, especially with new employees, when a load of furniture comes in from the truck or a large U-Haul comes in, I just give them a set of Post-it notes and I say, tell me what you think you'd price this at. And that, because I want to see where their baseline is. And I've had one employee, there's one employee that's going to there's the exception to what I'm about to say, which is everybody that I've ever taught has priced sometimes at 50% higher than what we would actually price in the ReStore.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because they think of the Walmart, Target, Home Depot pricing. So we've actually, in most cases, had to bring people down, interestingly. And then, over time, you start to learn as you start to see multiple items. But what we did this year with what we call our focus categories is once I had all the sales data, because we have really moved to a data-driven business. I mean, there's a reason why there's books and seminars and all these things that you can, and we had never been applying traditional business principles to this ReStore business, because I think the thought before was, well, it's so different, but it is and it isn't. It's still a retail, right? It's still a retail, and you can take those principles, and if you apply them correctly, you can increase your sales. I'll give you the end point of this is we did a focus thing on furniture, and every store we did it, we gave them their own categories that they were pricing too low. And I'll explain in a second how I knew they were pricing too low, and I said, these are the categories you need to price higher. The public is saying you can price higher. And in the first, now we're in month 7 of this fiscal year over year, we have made $400,000 more in furniture sales, selling less units.
Wow.
Because we focused on pricing the items that we figured out through the reports that we get
too low.
through.
So how did you figure out that they were too low? Because you said the consumer was telling you, but what did the data tell you?
So how I figured it out was now I'm going to go back to the color discount policy, because that's a key piece of this information. Is when we sell something, the system knows if it sells a full price or 20 or 40 or 60% off. As I started analyzing the data, I realized that in order to maximize my sales, when I price it, I need something to sell at full price or 20% off to get the most money that I'm going to get for it. Right. And if it goes too often to 40 or 60% off, if I price it too high, the other thing inside of that is if you price too high and it sits in your store 60% off, that's about 8 weeks of time, 6 to 8 weeks of time. And that floor space in the store is super valuable because you're getting more stuff in.
So valuable. You got to turn stuff.
Turn it over. That's the key to this is turnover. So as I was looking at the data for some stores, if I noticed that items that in a certain subcategory, say coffee tables, that more than 90% of the time they were selling at full or 20%, I realized they were pricing too low. Because if you're selling too quickly, that means that people are like just snatching it right up.
They come in, they say, "Wow, that's a great deal."
And I've had times like I've been walking out to the sales floor with an item I priced, and they just grab it out of your hand, and then you always say if you're in a ReStore, I promise you the phrase you'll hear is, "Guess I priced it too low," because the employees even know, man, I should have priced that higher because I could have got more value. So I went through all 39 categories for every store individually. And I looked at where they were selling too fast at full or 20%. And I said, you need to raise these prices. And so then I looked at what they were averaging. I came up with a range that they should go to. And then, I can give all the plans that I want. Our employees embrace this program. They stuck to it. They have really followed it. They're excited about it. We have friendly email, hey, my store did, average unit retail, AURs, or, average unit retail, we're at $60 on our furniture this week. And, and kind of bragging a little bit, some friendly competition amongst the stores. But so as I've been analyzing the data, I realized that the sweet spot for maximizing your sales, but also selling, was we needed to be about 80 to 85% selling at full price or 20% off. That seems to be where the best ranges. So we talk about this. We have many sales metrics. We have a whole scorecard that we put out, and it's for all the managers to see. And every week I update this with the weekly numbers, and we compare your now this will be a total furniture AUR. So all pieces of furniture and what you average sold them at that week versus how fast you were selling them. So you want to be at this level, but you want this percentage. And if that percentage goes up, we need you to raise your prices. If that percentage goes too far down, then you're actually the public's saying you're way too high.
You're way too high.
So, yeah. So we don't want to turn off. Listen, a ReStore is a thrift store, and it is people come in because they want to get a deal. So we don't want to turn off and have people not come in, but we also don't want to devalue stuff and not make enough net sales because ultimately we want to make as much money as we can.
Yeah, as much as you can, because that goes back to the affiliate to build the houses that you mentioned. So essentially what you've done is you've taken a pricing metric and then essentially cross-categorize that with time to determine that sweet spot. And so you were able to do that looking at the data within ThriftCart.
It's exactly how I did it. Exactly how I did it.
And just for listeners, it was $400,000 selling less items year over year.
Yep. Wow, we sold about, I don't know the metric of how many less items. I know it's not 5 less items. Right. I mean, it's a significant number, but we're fine with that because, when we see the flip side, which is the $400,000 extra dollars, that's really what we're obviously trying to, make them better net sales. And, this, like I mentioned it a little bit earlier, the key part of this for me personally is I always tell when I train, I don't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
You're going to get a ton of all of these little tchotchke, whatever. We actually have 101 items in our store that we standard price. So
wow. Okay.
Now so say for example, we have like, for example, vases are $1. Now, if
okay. Doesn't matter size, shape, color, anything. It's $1. Interesting.
But if the crystal vase comes in that we know has higher value, the employee, all of our signs say, unless, it's standard price unless otherwise marked. So if we get the really nice vase in, sure, put $20 on it, of course. Okay. You don't want to sell that item for $1.
Right. Exactly.
But what we're trying to teach our employees is, yes, we value the stuff. We don't want it to go to the landfill. We want to sell it in our store, but where you're going to make your money and where you need to spend your time, because we're skeleton crewed in our stores. We don't have the luxury of having 5, 10 employees. Most of our stores have 4 employees. Wow. Okay. And that includes the store manager, an assistant manager, and 2 associates. That's it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Really skeleton crew. Yeah. So you guys don't have the luxury of being extremely detailed and granular with the pricing. So thus the over 100 items that are standard price. Okay.
Yep. And with that way, you can just go to the floor. Sure. They'll sort through it real quick. And if they find the nice item, put it off to the side, we'll check it later. It really helps people to understand, like we are, Emily's good phrase is water over a rock. She wants us to just keep saying the same stuff. We don't need to have the flavor of the month strategy, because then it confuses everyone. We have these 6 revenue drivers this year. That's all we talk about. We don't bring up anything new, and everybody knows this is what and every time I do store visits and we go in, the first thing I talk about is how's the 6 categories going for you?
How's your top 6? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's such sage advice right there, because what I see so often in ReStores is the opposite of what you guys are doing. They're trying to figure out price every single thing rather than looking at the data. What is the data telling me? Okay, this is what's driving our revenue. Let's focus on this. Everything else, standardize it. So that's a fantastic business model. And would you say that's been one of the biggest catalysts to your guys' success?
Once we got everyone to buy in on the standard pricing, that was a tough sell. It was tough. Right. And there's, people, I have a store so we get a lot of like electrical sockets and, the light switches and all these different things. And, he's got a big space in the store that has like a huge bin of these things. And I keep saying we need to, reduce that size footprint in your store so we can put the more valuable stuff. Well, people buy them. Yeah. But when I look at the data, you're making $50 a month off of this huge space. And I want that space to make me $1,000 a month, not 50. So we can use the data too to help us understand how to allocate our square footage for, when we section off our store for the different items that we sell. That's
another key thing that I've seen that you guys are so successful at. And there's a report in Thrift Cart. So it's essentially sales by square foot. Now you have to go in and allocate, but what you have per square footage. But that right there, to your point, couple that with, your pricing strategy and your turns, that is really how I imagine you guys maximize the footage that you have, the inventory that you have to drive your revenue, because to your point, if I can sell furniture in that space, I would much rather do that as opposed to selling, light sockets. So knowledge is power, right?
In a previous life, I worked in food manufacturing as a quality assurance manager. But it's so funny how I never even worked retail until I started with the ReStores, and that was like about 7 years ago now. But the principles are the same, and operations are the same. And really all I'm doing is just simply taking the data that is generated in my store and I'm looking at it, and then I'm literally making the decisions and my
data-driven decision making.
100%. I can't even begin to tell you. Like before, when I first started this, we weren't doing that. We'd all be like, "What do we do?" I mean, it kind of felt almost, kind of weird. And now that we kind of have a set plan, and people are buying in. Like I have an assistant. I'm in right now my office. I'm in my office, and I'm in Durham. I live in Durham, and the assistant manager here he is great because he's got all these like graphs on the board. He's tracking his sales, and we want that. We want to have that engagement with our employees,
that visibility,
really
that engagement, to know where you're standing, right?
Yep, exactly.
I think the old saying is like, you don't know if you're winning if you don't keep score, right?
Exactly.
So I love that. So one of the things, and I think this is a nice segue, because I think what Wake does and the Triangle does, I think stands to reason that almost all ReStores should, is there's this perception that I see that because it's thrift, that the principles of retail don't apply. And I think Wake is the poster child for saying that that's not true. You need to make data-driven decisions, and the proof is in the revenue that you guys generate. So Wake does a fantastic job. I want to segue, though, into where do you see, I mean, so ReStores are part of overall thrift, but where do you see thrift, and taken in the context of it, where do you see it going in the future? How do you see your business model changing? And what are some of the things that Wake County and the Triangle is looking to do?
So, while we're the biggest, we have the most stores or whatever, there's some things that there's some other ReStore chains out there that are doing that we want to now start to model. And the name of the game is going to be e-commerce. That is where the next phase of this. And there's a ReStore chain out in LA that is generating closer to like $1 million a year in an e-commerce kind of world. Oh, wow. So that is, and that, that's significant. That's basically a whole, like one of our stores on an average budget is between $600,000 and $800,000 for net sales. So, $1 million in e-commerce is, let's
huge.
go find that. Let's go
number. Okay.
But, given our business model, it's not, it's a little tricky to try to set it up. I'm actually working with Thrift Cart right now. We're starting our first baby steps into figuring out how we're going to make this happen for us. But we know that online shopping is different, and that there's certain items that, like collectibles especially, and certain items that come in the store that we cannot get the right value for inside the store. It's just impossible
in a brick and mortar, right?
Yeah, in a brick and mortar. Okay. It's just, there's certain things that come in. A couple of years ago, I got in all these sports memorabilia, collectible, like little figurines. And I went online and they were, selling for 15, 20, 30 bucks a pop. And by the end of the day, I maybe got $2 a piece for them, because my reseller, nobody was buying them. They want to buy them to resell them themselves, And so,
well, and you don't normally think of those kind of items and associated with a ReStore, right? But you guys still get them.
My joke I always make is, if mankind has made an item on this earth, it has come into the ReStore.
It's going to end up in a ReStore.
I have seen I'm not shocked anymore. I used to be like, well, why are they donating this? And now it's just like, if it's in somebody's house,
there's a good chance it's going to end up there.
Yeah, it's kind of I mean, I've seen comic books. I mean, just everything. So, but then the flip side of that is okay, then how do we sell? Like, how are we going to maximize? We talked earlier a little bit ago about how we're maximizing our furniture. We're at that sweet spot. We're not going to, that we're just going to keep going with that track, but that's probably mostly a done project, because our public has now said this is what we're willing to pay for these items. And so that's great. So now what's going to be our next way to generate some more revenue? And I really, we have actually two ways. One of the things we did, which is very interesting to me, that how successful it's kind of been, is we call it ReStore Treasures. So we have gone out with our volunteer group and found people in our community who have more expertise about antiques and, wall art and different things. And they actually come into our stores and they'll walk around and they'll find items that we're selling for 10 or 15 bucks. And they'll go, you need to pull this back and put like $100 on it, because it's actually that much more valuable. And so
it's almost like Antique Roadshow.
Yeah.
But you have experts coming into that's fascinating. And that makes me, it jogs my memory. I was in a store in Asheville, very similar thing. And I was just walking through, they were showing me their operation, how they do production. And I saw over to the side, I saw an antique, a mid-century modern Coca-Cola cooler.
Sure.
And they had a sticker on it for $5. And I grabbed them and I'm like, absolutely not. That's worth at least a couple $100. Put that on eBay. So I think that's kind of what you're saying, is because a ReStore seems to be this collection point for all things, using those experts. So you have them just come through the store, pull things down. Like you could get a lot more for this than what you're pricing it. And that's where you're thinking e-commerce will come in.
Right. So I think this is like the Restore Treasure part is maybe a prelude to ultimately identifying what items we're going to sell better online, when we go to the e-commerce. It's, when you hire in a Restore, I mean, we actually had to raise our wages because we want to make sure that we have good, stable, staffs in our stores. Of course, like any business will say like that's a good key to success. But nobody's an expert in antiques or art typically, and I've seen art pieces that I thought were $25, and then the Restore Treasure person would be like, forget the artwork. The frame alone is worth $150 on this thing, So, sometimes you have to start looking at it from those eyes too, that it's not about the print or whatever's inside of it. Sometimes it's about the frame. And then the different furniture pieces. So we actually have a little card called Restore Treasures. So when we ask for the more money, we don't just put $200 on something. We actually say the reason why we're doing this is because this is from the 19th century, England. Right, so there's a justification. So you
justify and educate, your customer base. So they're not just like, wait, why are
they crazy?
Yeah, I've had enough people. Okay, that makes sense.
But I think that's a good prelude to when we start to do online selling, because my goal in the beginning is to start small and grow. Of course, that's, how you're going to do it. But, what is it that we're going to sell? Or, what's going to sell well on a Facebook marketplace or an Instagram versus the eBay? Because eBay is, a lot of people are going there for the collectible items. And we do get those in our stores. I mean, it's not all the time, but it's enough that there's value to try it out. And I think, we're going to have to, it's like any startup, you're going to have to invest some money, to try to get it going, find the right people to run it, there's a lot of, I don't want to get too technical here, but there's a lot that goes into just setting that up inside of a Restore environment, because in most cases we're only going to have one of the thing to sell. This is not like a traditional, when you go online and you want to buy whatever, well, they just go to the warehouse and there's 50 of them on a shelf and they
have
pull
a
one
whole bunch of inventory. It's a one-off unique item.
Yes, one-off. So that's the tricky part of understanding like how we're going to identify what's going to sell well. And I think I'll end up my goal eventually will be to see how that kind of sells, and then we'll start doing the same thing we do in our stores, to use our data-driven analysis to figure out, we really need to start targeting this area better because this sells well. And let's stop selling this stuff online because it's really not making us any money. Right. And kind of go from there. But
using the metrics. So the future, what I'm hearing you say is, e-commerce. And just because the changing demographic and, for better or worse, COVID changed a lot of buying habits and a lot of buying preferences, so I think it's what you're saying is, the Restore, traditionally a brick and mortar, but to continue your guys' growth and to continue, honestly, your mission, right, is we got to start to branch into e-commerce. So, that's something that Thrift Cart is built for, and we're going to be helping you guys get there. So I'm excited for that opportunity. So, you've been so gracious with your time. I wanted to give you the opportunity just to kind of wrap things up. Any sage advice, anything you would say to, not only other Restores that are listening to this, but just people in general with Thrift, and just give them some advice how to maximize their business like you guys have.
I'm going to go back to kind of what we've been talking about all along. Really, if you're going to use Thrift Cart, first and foremost, have a discount policy. I think that is we didn't really have a coherent one a few years ago, and we kind of changed to a different model. And it's something that has really driven some of our sales. I mean, we have customers like on the first day of the month and the 15th day of the month, the sidewalk, right when you're going to open the store, there's like sometimes 15, 20 people waiting because they've seen that piece a week ago. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they're waiting to come in and hoping, it's a gamble, because if they walk away and didn't buy it and they come back because they know it's going to be 20% cheaper when they come back on this certain day, then if it's there, then, they got it for cheaper.
Well,
and if not,
you've just created demand. I mean, you've already set that precedence in their minds. Like, hey, on these dates, I'm going to come in and, hey, hopefully that item I saw, like now it's 20% off. So you just by having a discount, then created consumer, I mean, which is fantastic, and it drives foot traffic, I'm sure.
Although sometimes I played the game with customers where I'll say, like, if I'm with them and they're kind of going, well, maybe I'll wait and come back to get it cheaper. You know, I know it's going to be discounting in a few days, and I'll be like, but don't you want to give us the money and help us build more houses in our community? So sometimes I'll say that, like, you know, the money,
you pull on the heartstrings a little bit. Yeah, I gotcha.
And if anybody that ever watches this from the ReStore, they'll understand what I'm about to say. Is so funny how so many of our customers don't understand how the ReStore works in the habitat world. They don't know, like, they know that we're a habitat ReStore, but they don't understand what our role is. And I've had countless conversations with people just to say, they'll say, where does the money go? And I'm like, in my head, I think it's kind of, you know, you would know it, obvious. But I've had to tell people over and over again, all the money that we make goes to build houses like this. Like, it's literally like we give all of our profit to that. So, you know, when you said wrap it up, it's like, have a discount policy. Really, you know, the key is to make sure that how you're pricing, you have to be, if you have multiple stores, standardize that, standardize your register interface, do standard pricing on some of that small stuff. That changed our whole world. I mean, we had some of it here and there, but I mean, we really went all in and, you know, identified 100 items that we standard priced that really made a difference for us as well. And by the way, a lot of that stuff is either home goods or tools and hardware. I've been watching, you know, I watch all the data. We have not lost any money. If anything, we've made more money by going to standard pricing. You know, interestingly enough. So to do that, and then, you know, just once you get those systems in place, you know, there's a lot of nice reports inside of Thrift Cart. I probably run 50 Thrift Cart reports a day, you know, but there's, I mean, I live my whole life inside of it.
Tell when TJ's in running a report.
I've had a couple of times I've had to not run certain reports because I didn't want to like make our registers run slower or something. Yep. But the point is there's a lot of good data there. You have to be disciplined, and you have to, you know, come up with your plan and stick to it. You know, for anybody that's watching, I know every so often Kyle will have me talk to someone. More than happy to share. I mean, I will. If you have a great idea that you're doing your ReStore that works for you, I will totally steal it and best practices and all that. But the flip side is we're more than happy to have you come visit us or come in. I've done some screen sharing with a couple of the ReStores where I'll kind of show them our reports or our metrics or how we use the system. And it's working for us. You know, the results are there. You know, yep. we've seen the growth this year and we expect nothing more but just to continue that. So.
Well, no, that's fantastic. So honestly, wrapping it up here, TJ, I just want to thank you. That was a wealth of knowledge. That was a great conversation. For everybody listening, take TJ up on his offer. I mean, the man knows the stuff. He knows how to run a ReStore. And the principles here apply not only to ReStores, but all thrift in general. So with that said, TJ, thank you so much for your time. Yeah. Thank you for being a part of the Thrifty Business Podcast. And we appreciate your business here at Thrift Cart. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care. Thank you for listening to Thrifty Business. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. Leave a rating or review to let us know what you think. For more interviews with business owners, visit thriftcart.com/interviews, where you'll find transcripts, show notes, and videos for all of our episodes.